Good day, guys. As you can see, the topics that we are going to cover, provided times allow, in BOT3646, which is appearing here as BOT3645, never mind about that, is the cycling of nitrogen in nature, the nitrogen absorption and processing in plants, the process of photosynthesis, and lastly, if time allows, salinity. I'm going to go straight to the cycling of nitrogen in nature. And you will see that there are different processes that forms part and parcel of the cycling of nitrogen in nature. And that includes mineralization. Don't mind much about volatilization, immobilization, nitrification, denitrification, and nitrogen fixation. So I did my first video and I think it was too long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a lot of short videos that are easy to send, not too big. So I'll probably make a video for each subtopic, starting with mineralization. I'm skipping this slide. So what is mineralization, which is basically where we're starting? Plants are comprised of roots, stems, branches, leaves, and so on and so on. But within these organs, you've got cells, but largely plants are comprised of the organic molecules of life. So is you, and so it's a cat and a dog and other animals. We are largely comprised of the organic molecules of life. Those organic molecules that you studied about in the first year, your carbohydrates, your proteins, your nucleic acids, and lipids. So in the bodies of living plants, in the structures of living plants and living animals, you have got organic molecules that contain nitrogen. These will be molecules like proteins and nucleic acids. I can talk about amino acids, but you all know that amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. So within proteins, you've got amino acids. So when dead plants, be it a leaf that falls into the ground, or a branch that is broken, or a whole plant dying, not only dead plants, even dead animals, including dead bacteria, because within them they have got these organic molecules of life that contain nitrogen. When they are decomposed, the nitrogen which is locked within these nitrogen containing organic molecules is bound to be stripped and is going to become free and be released back into the soil. This nitrogen that forms part of the proteins in a living plant or in a dead plant, or a dead leaf or a living leaf, is called an organic form of nitrogen because it still forms part and parcel of the chains of carbons. A protein has got a carbon at the center and it has got all these other functional groups, including an amino group which contains nitrogen. So when decomposition takes place and the remains of a dead plant, a dead animal, or dead any living thing is decomposed, then nitrogen is going to be released into the soil in the form of ammonia, which can be converted into ammonium. Ammonia is some kind of a gas. Ammonium is an ion. That process is called mineralization. It can also be referred to as ammonification. And the microorganisms that plays a role in the releasing of the nitrogen in the dead remains of plants and animals and bacteria when decomposition takes place, are called ammonifying microorganisms, mostly bacteria. Okay, that is basically what mineralization is. The release of nitrogen, which is in an organic form, when the living organisms die and decompose, the release of that nitrogen that is in an organic form, released into the soil in an inorganic form instead of an organic form. That is what mineralization is. So there are certain slides that are showing mineralization. Just go through that. Let's forget about the measurement of the rate of net mineralization because we don't have time. I'm skipping that slide. Please read the factors affecting the rate of mineralization: the water content of the soil, the aeration of the soil, temperature. These are very straightforward environmental factors. Just go through those. They are very, very easy to understand. This is just a graph showing you what mineralization is. You can see on the y-axis you've got inorganic nitrogen formed. On the y-axis the soil water content. That is, this slide is just showing you the effect of water content on the process of mineralization. You can see as the water content increase, the process of mineralization increases up to a certain level of the water content, and as you keep on increasing the water content, then mineralization drops. Just try and read that. The volatilization of ammonium is a process where if there's a release of nitrogen into the soil in a rapid manner, there's too much of ammonium being released into the soil, that can change the pH of the soil, making the ammonium, which is an ion, being converted into ammonia, which is a gas, and that gas can then be lost into the atmosphere. That is called the volatilization of ammonia. The next slide or the next clip that I'm going to send will be dealing with mineralization. I think I have to stop there to avoid making these clips too big and impossible to send. Thank you. Watch out for the next clip, guys. The next clip is going to be with regard to immobilization of ammonia. Thank you. Immobilization of nitrogen, I meant. Thank you. Good afternoon, guys. I'm back again. The next topic is the immobilization of nitrogen. It is still part of the cycling of nitrogen in nature. Remember, we just dealt with mineralization that results in the release of nitrogen into the soil in the form of ammonium. Now, there are microorganisms that play a role in this release of nitrogen from the dead remains of living organisms into the soil. Now, these microorganisms are on the thick of things. They are involved in processes a process that is going to result into this release of nitrogen into the soil, and mostly bacteria forms part of these microorganisms. So don't forget that these microorganisms also need nitrogen so that they can also be able to make their own organic molecules of life, like proteins, like nucleic acids. They will need nitrogen, which therefore brings us to the point that some of this nitrogen that is released into the soil is going to be immediately used by these microorganisms that are involved in mineralization. And the use of this nitrogen by these microorganisms is what is referred here to as immobilization. So the microorganisms will be the first to use this nitrogen that is released into the soil. The amount of nitrogen that they can use out of the total that has been released into the soil will depend on the availability of the carbons. Remember, for them to use the nitrogen to make organic molecules, carbon atoms must be available to form the backbones of these organic molecules of life. No carbon, no amino acids, no proteins, and equally, no carbons, no nucleic acids. So carbons will be needed, and most likely the source of these carbons is also going to be this material that is decomposed. If it is a plant that is decomposed, it will be having carbons, it will be having nitrogen, it will be having other mineral elements. So when it decomposes, all these mineral elements will be released into the soil. So if the decomposed material has got a lot of nitrogen but very little carbon, it will mean there will be a lot of nitrogen available in the soil and very little carbon. And that is going to limit the use of nitrogen by this microorganism. For every nitrogen that they are going to use, they will need carbon skeletons. And if there isn't enough supply of these carbon skeletons, there isn't a lot of nitrogen that they can use. Vice versa, if there's a high supply of the carbon skeletons and very little supply of nitrogen in the soil, it then means these microorganisms can be able to use so much of the nitrogen that has been released in the soil to a point that very little will be left in the soil for the use by the higher plant. So that is why we talk about the ratio of carbon to nitrogen. What that actually refers to is, in the decomposed material, how much of that decomposed material is carbon and how much of that is nitrogen. So when it is decomposed, the carbon is going to be released and the nitrogen is going to be released. And if the decomposed material contains a lot of nitrogen, more of the nitrogen is going to be released and less carbon is going to be released. I hope you understand this concept. So the carbon to nitrogen ratio determines the amount of the nitrogen that the microorganisms can be able to use or immobilize, therefore determining how much can be left for the use by the higher plants.